Hey everybody, this is Coach Floyd. Welcome to week 9. This week's going to be a little bit different because I'm not going to put near as much as what we've been doing. I kind of want it to be, one new lesson, but also a little bit of time to do some makeup for anybody that needs to get caught up on anything. Um, my goal is to help you through all this stuff. So if you're a little behind, try to use this week to get caught up. Email me, let me know what you need help with. Check in. We can do a video call. Just let me know. Okay, if you're breezing through, I appreciate you, and glad you're finding it pretty easy. Today we're going to start with lesson 4 and talking about a bouncing ball. So we got a ball moving in the previous lessons. Okay, so now we're not just going to make it move, we're going to make it start bouncing off the walls so it stays inside the parameters. Now in order to find out if something is bouncing, we got to know what the edge of the ball is. So there is and you can find it in your docs, and I'll show you that in a minute. There is a method that allows you to find the current X and Y of the ball at any given location. So to find the edge of the ball, for the left side, we would have to find the get X. We would have to use that method, and I'll show you, to get the current X location, and then I would have to subtract the radius. And this would be my, for example, A is what it's calling it. So this would be my location. Now if this is touching the left side of the screen, which is X equals 0, then we know that we need to change the direction of the ball. Okay, so that's what we're going to be doing. So ball X minus radius gives us this side. Ball X plus radius gives us here. Same thing with the in the Y direction. It would be ball Y minus radius gives us the top. Ball Y plus radius gives us the bottom. Now, if that A is less than 0, then that means that we are starting to get off the screen, and we need to change the direction. Okay. Now I put less than 0 because let's say I'm moving by 7 pixels. Okay. Well, if I start at an even number, then it's very possible that that point will never actually just equal 0. So we want to do a less than to make sure that if it passes that 0, then we're going to bounce. Okay. Well, and the way we bounce is, so right here, if the ball X minus the radius is less than 0, then we're going to bounce. So let's look at how that happens. And luckily, this gives you starter code for all of these lessons. So it gives you the code for a bouncing ball, and you can see that it's bouncing around. Now let's look at how this happens. We have one ball that is bouncing, so of course anytime we have one object, we have to make it a global, and we create it in our start function. So that's where we have our circle. Now we have two variables up here. These are new ones, dx and dy. Excuse me. dx and dy, what these stand for is the change in the x and the change in the y. So as our ball moves, we are going to change it by 4 pixels to the right, 4 pixels down. As we bounce, then we can change the values of dx and dy to go into positive directions or negative directions depending on where we're at. So D stands for delta. If you've taken some higher level math classes, then you know that delta stands for the change in something. Okay, so that's what dx and dy stand for. So we create a ball. It has a radius of 20. We're just starting it at 100, 100 just to give it a place on the screen. That doesn't really matter. We're not setting a color, so it just defaults to black. We add it to the screen, and we set our timer. So every 20 milliseconds, we are going to call draw. Draw does two things. First, it makes the ball move by dx, dy. Okay, and the reason we put the variables is so that we can change it to a positive, negative as it goes. We can change those variables down here and check walls, and it's just going to continually work. So we do a ball.move of dx, dy. Now, we call check walls, and this is a function they give you that you can keep using, And what check walls does is every time that ball moves, it checks to see if it is off the screen. If it is, then it changes its direction. So the first part of it checks to see if we're bouncing off the right wall. Well, to find the right side of the ball, we did the ball.getX. This is our function, or our object method. So I'm talking about the ball, and I'm getting the current X location of the ball. If that current X location plus the current radius of the ball, now if we had a radius variable up here instead of 20, then we could just use, the variable radius, but this just uses ball.getRadius. So find the current X, which is the center of the ball, we add the radius, and we get the right side. If that is greater than getWidth, which is this line over here, then what we have to do is we have to reverse the direction of the dx. Okay, because we're coming this way in an x direction, and we want to reverse it, which takes it back this way. So all we're going to do is we're going to set dx equal to negative dx. So it turns it from a 4 to a negative 4. So now when ball.move happens, it is a negative x direction, but still a positive y direction. So it's going down this way. Well, same thing if we bounce off the left wall. So let's say we bounce here and we come back and hit here. Then now the left side of the ball, so ball.getX minus the radius, if it is less than 0, then that means we have hit this side of the screen. And again, now we're taking the negative 4, multiplying it by a negative, which makes it positive. So now we're going back in a positive direction. And it's the same thing with the bottom and top wall, except we're using getY here, checking getHeight and 0, and we're changing the dy. So it's still, for both of these, you're just changing it to a negative, because 2 negatives equals a positive, so that kind of just is changing it around. Okay, so as this happens, you can see that we change the direction, and it just continually bounces at 90 degrees every time. Now, if you wanted it to randomly change, you could have a random dx and dy, and there's a whole lot that you could do in here, but we're just going to keep it basic and simple and just have it bounce 90 degrees as it goes. Okay, so let me stop that. So let's look at the 2 exercises for today and kind of what they're gonna do. So this starts you with your bouncing ball. Okay, so it's going to give you that code. And we're going to make it a hotspot ball. A hotspot ball is a ball that changes colors depending on what part of the screen it's on. If it's on the left side, it should be blue. If it's on the right side, it should be green. And if you make it through that pretty quick, then challenge yourself into making quadrants so that it's a top left, a top right, bottom left, bottom right. But here's what this looks like. Now, if you notice, the ball changes when it crosses this imaginary line that is halfway down the screen. Okay, so you know that you can find the current X position of the ball at any given location. And you know that this side of the screen is when X is less than a certain amount, and this side of the screen is when X is greater than a certain amount. So I get a lot of people that change the color of the ball when it hits the wall, and that's not what it wants you to do. Okay, it wants you to change the color when it crosses that imaginary middle of the X. Okay, so this is your bouncing ball. This is what it starts you with. Now, if I hit check code right here, it almost passes me. So I have to come through here and I have to look. The way you pass these is if when you hit run, it does this. Okay, it should do this correctly. So we still have our dx dy, we still have our timer. The only thing we need to do is when we come down here into draw, you have to keep your check walls, keep your move. We just need to call a function that checks the sets the color based upon X location. Okay, so then you're going to create a function. So every time that ball moves, it just checks to see where the x coordinate is. If it's on the left side of the screen, it makes sure that it does a set color of blue, and if it's on the right side of the screen, then it does a set color of green. So that is all you got to do right there. So make a call just like you would make a call right here, and I don't know, call it check color, right? And then you just write the function. For the trail, we're going to take that same bouncing ball, and we're going to make a line of smaller circles on a different color at the location of the ball every time the ball moves. You should make the radius half the radius of the ball, and you should have a counter keeping up with how many times it bounces. So let's look. So what we are doing is we are making this line. This is just a series of circles being put down where they're so close together that it looks like a line. So every time that ball moves by 4 pixels, it puts a new ball down. It is bouncing, 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 and then it stops. So when it's bounced 20 times, then we stop our timer. So let's go through here. So again, it starts you with this. Now, we have to keep this. We still have that one ball. But our job is to draw a lot more circles. So that means we're going to leave that one here. And down here in our draw function, we are going to draw, let's create a function to draw a circle every time the ball moves. And so this is still kind of the same. Let's do this. So then we'll do, let's see, function, comment that function, let's call it make circle, I don't know, make it whatever we want. And then, so in here, we're going to, sorry, forgot to hit my comments, create a circle, half radius of the big circle. So, and it's 20, so I'm making it 10. And I'm going to set the position to the current position of the ball. Okay, so the ball up here, we got to find the current position of that ball every time it moves. Set color to cyan, so that would be a color dot cyan, and add ball. Now, the part about counting the number of bounces. So we know how many we're looking for, but we got to have a counter. So create a counter. Of course, it always starts at 0 because you haven't counted anything yet. And then every time the ball actually bounces, we increase our counter. So our ball bounces every time our direction is changed. So every time the direction changes, we also need to increase our counter. Boom. Okay, and it will only increase if it actually bounces, right? So I would need to increase my counter in here. Then create a function to check counter and stop timer. Okay, so I'm in my counter plus plus in here. I'm going to do it in here every time it bounces. Okay, and that will that'll get you your trail. So I hope this is helpful. Like I said, it's just these this week. Next week we're going to get into the mouse movements and mouse methods, and it's a little more work. So I want everybody try to get caught up, try to get as much as you can done this week, and I will see you next week. If you have any troubles, let me know.